Welcome to Risk Engineers Talk Governance. In this episode, due diligence engineers Richard Robinson and Gaye Francis revisit the topic of safety culture. We hope you enjoy the chat. If you do, we'd love you to give us a rating, and also don't forget to subscribe on your favourite podcast platform. And if you'd like more information on R2A's work or have any feedback or topic ideas, please head to the website r2a.com.au.
Welcome, Richard, to another podcast session.
Hello, Gaye. Good to be back.
Good to be back. Today we're going to talk about safety culture or revisit safety culture. I think we did a podcast very early on in our season 1 or 2 about safety culture and the uprise of James Reason and things like that. But we've just been doing a little bit of research, and I guess it comes around some of the observations that we've had that organisations are tending to be a bit more reactive to incidents. And yes, if that incident happens, they're very good at then putting in controls and precautions in place to make sure that that doesn't happen again. But they're not sort of aiming for what we would call that generative safety culture in their organisation. And so you've been doing a little bit of research and a bit of reading, and we've come up with a professor, isn't he?
Yep, well, he was. He's now emeritus. He's retired.
Okay. Professor Patrick Hudson.
Yeah, the trick here, he's been around for a while. The thing I didn't actually quite appreciate was we normally use the James Reason model, and the James Reason model has 3 levels, bureaucratic.
Pathological first, down the bottom.
Yeah,
shoot the messenger.
Yep, bureaucratic, listen to messages if they happen to arrive alive, and then generative, training more people for bringing bad news to your attention. And everybody, aspires to generative. Now, what I didn't actually quite appreciate, because for some reason I've always given the credit to James Reason, was this Patrick Hudson fellow was actually the project manager for Tripod Delta, where all this stuff came from. And I must say, I've always been a little bit surprised just how much kudos James Reason got out of that Tripod Delta thing. That was the Piper Alpha incident in the North Sea. But this fellow actually had 5 levels rather than 3 levels. And in an overall sense, I don't think we particularly care one way or the other, but he actually had a couple of levels which did actually make us twitch just a little bit. Perhaps you might just read them.
Yes, so I'll need my glasses for this. Pathological, who cares as long as we're not caught? Reactive, safety is important. We do a lot every time we have an incident. Calculative, we have systems in place to manage all hazards. Proactive, we work on the problems that we still find. And generative, safety is how we do business around here. And he's sort of got 2 arrows heading up the page of that, and it's increasingly informed and increasing trust, which I think are 2 really important attributes that are required in a safety culture.
Well, I think what we sort of regarded with this is that we're aware that somebody gets the fright of their lives and they're previously smug and happy, which would be the pathological viewpoint. And then what they tend to do is leap to standards. And if you believe the professor from Brisbane University, the fellow who, I should remember these things, but he's the one who says that, Sidney Decker, he's the one who says, I've got so many rules, nobody knows what all the rules are. Now, if you go from pathological to the next level and then go to that calculative one, you're sort of going with the standards, but you're creating more and more rules. And we keep seeing that. We keep people just creating more and more rules. Yeah. And truly the people who've got to implement them really don't know what's going on. So they haven't actually taught the philosophy and they haven't actually gone to the right ideas.
Which is that sort of that bureaucratic level in James Reason terms.
Yeah, now most of our clients come to us, they're generally at the bureaucratic or slightly better than. They're looking for better. Yes. They're actually searching for better, which is what he calls his proactive. And I agree with that. It is an interesting thing whether generative is actually aspirational. It's a bit like zero harm. I don't think anyone actually believes you're a large organisation, zero harm is going to be the case. But you would like everybody to try and strive for that. The example I usually give is the police commissioner who's trying to go for zero child molestation. Well, we hope that's the objective, but do you think the police commissioner's got the resources to make that happen?
To be able to do that, yeah.
So we certainly aspire to that. Now, I think the plan is if you aspire to generative, then in his terms, you're more likely to be past bureaucratic and being proactive.
Yep, I agree. And I think generative is one of those ones that it's almost always changing. The goalposts are always changing for generative as new technology becomes available, more information becomes available. So that generative is always moving that little bit further out.
Well, one of the things that's bothering us is the rise of AI, and everybody we've noticed a lot of people just adopting AI and stop thinking. And I have a nasty feeling a lot of people are going to try and use AI for safety purposes. And the one thing I don't think you can do is stop thinking. Thinking's hard. And I've got this bad feeling too that, well, you're about to mark some assignments. I had no idea whether you're going to get a lot of AI coverage in there.
We'll see how we go. Well, maybe that's one of the extra lines that has to go up the page here. Increasingly informed, increasing trust, but it's increased thinking, isn't it? Almost required to reach that generative and proactive stage.
Well, I'm not saying AI can't give you certain insights, but I'm pretty sure the courts are against it. If you're an expert, you better not be relying on AI, because we've heard some stories about a lawyer who relied on AI and it just turned out to be complete rubbish.
Yeah.
Because remember, all the AI do is scraping the network or the internet, and it's looking to see what the internet collectively thinks. Well, I've got to say, human collective thinking can sometimes be an error, as I think we have noticed. And the reason for being an expert is that you're actually something different to what the collective actually believes.
And you have to really believe what you're saying.
Well, not so much to believe. You've got to have a reasoned argument for that position. I mean, that's why Kant is so hard to read, because his critique of pure reason, it's hard work, particularly the way Germans sometimes think. But there's some good understanding there. I mean, I've been through, the fact that time and space are most likely human constructs, and you still sort of recoil.
Yeah, sometimes it hits you that first thing in the morning when you get into work, and that's a bit too much.
But I've got new grandchildren. You can see the grandchild bashing themselves, working out hand, face, don't hit, not good.
Unless it's your brother or sister.
Yep. Well, in that case, you just poke them with a sharp object if you can.
Anyway, we've definitely got off topic. So we just think that this safety culture, the concept of a safety culture, it's always been there in organisations. It's not talked about as much now than it was in the sort of early 2000s.
Correct.
And we're seeing organisations, from our experience, move back down to that bureaucratic, reactive sort of stage, and that drive for generative and proactive isn't as forthcoming.
Well, it's got a lot to do. I mean, from our point of view, it's use of target levels of risk and safety. That to us is the classic bureaucratic position, because I've satisfied the criteria, I'm good. But
Done and dusted.
As we described in the, if you're at 30,000 feet and it's all going wrong, and the captain says, we satisfied our criteria, even though we could have done more and we wouldn't be crashing if we had. I don't think that's what people want to hear.
No, you would definitely like your airlines to be proactive, tending towards generative.
And that's why people like to have pilots at the front of the aircraft. The aircraft could land itself now, and it's probably more reliable than the pilot. But we do like the pilot to be first at the scene of the accident.
That's a pretty morbid message, but yes, that's what it is. So we're just saying there's a lot of information out there. We would encourage organisations to go down that proactive to generative approach, because I think you do get better safety outcomes.
But it's not. But we wouldn't suggest that you rely on that exclusively. I think that's part of what I have difficulty with some of these psychological models. The belief is that if the psychological model is right, everything else flows. I haven't quite worked out that having a proper state of mind means that you're diligent. I don't think those two things are necessarily.
I think what
congruent.
It does give you is, though, if everybody understands the culture of an organisation and everybody's contributing to it, it's that thought process that goes through it. But as we've said many, many times, the risk business and due diligence business in the technical organisation, it has many, many facets, and you can slice it and dice it a number of ways to get that insight, but it's one of those elements that does contribute to the overall safety of an organisation.
Yeah, but it'd be nice to get everybody to agree that zero harm is a good target.
Absolutely, rather than just the board on a piece of paper.
Correct. and that wouldn't be what our experience has been. Generally, people, to go for a target level of risk of safety is not a zero harm prospect.
No, and it's not. It doesn't help when you have to report your days since injuries, last injury, and your LTIs and things like that.
Yep.
I think that's about it on this one, Richard. So we might wrap it up. As we said, safety culture is an element that should be thought through from an organisational viewpoint, and there's many authors out there that write about it and characterise it in different ways, and it's just interesting to read some of that.
Yep.
So thanks for joining us.
Thanks.